Hello and welcome to Unsustainable. This week, I'm looking at the fire season in the US. I'll explain what counts as a large fire, where those large fires currently are burning across the country, and what that looks like right now in the US. Then I'll look at what the science says about fire, heat, drought, smoke, and climate change. After that, I'll look at what the current administration has done and is doing to either strengthen or weaken the systems that prevent, forecast, and fight these fires. And stay to the end because I'll finish with whatever good news I'm able to find. Because even in fire season like this, the full story is never just disaster. First, a definition. In US wildfire reporting, a large incident generally means a wildfire of at least 100 acres in timber or 300 acres in grass or sage. So when US agencies say there are large fires burning, they don't mean every small ignition. They mean fires big enough to show up in the national system. The National Interagency Fire Center, or NIFC, published its latest national update on Friday, July 24th at 8:36 in the morning Mountain Time. The key facts. Firefighters were working to suppress and contain 78 large fires across the country. 15 of those were new large incidents since the previous day. More than 23,000 firefighters and support personnel were engaged nationwide. That included crews, engines, helicopters, and other support teams. So far this year, more than 41,000 fires have burned more than 4 million acres across the US. NIFC says red flag warnings, heat advisories, and extreme heat warnings are still affecting wide areas. That's the national picture. Now the fire map. The center of gravity right now is the Pacific Northwest. NIFC says the Northwest geographic era has 37 large fires. Oregon is the biggest cluster. The key facts. Oregon has 25 large fires listed. Those fires cover more than 368,000 acres. The Hay Creek complex alone is nearly 150,000 acres. Other major Oregon fires include Brewer, Big Brass, Akawa Butte, Henry Powder River, Coyote, and Box Springs. Several are still listed with very low containment. That's the state carrying the heaviest fire load right now. Just north of Oregon, Washington has 6 large fires. Washington's large fires cover more than 109,000 acres. The Kaiser Canyon fire is the standout at more than 89,000 acres. NIFC listed it as only 3% contained. Other Washington fires include Little Giant, Modrite, Railroad, and Border 2. Then California. California is always one of the states people expect in a US wildfire story, but today it's not the largest cluster. The key facts. California has 8 fires listed. Together they cover more than 97,000 acres. The largest listed California fire is Biscar, at more than 69,000 acres. Other listed fires include Elephant, Rock, Little Brook, Chute, and Rumsey. Then Idaho. Idaho has 5 large fires listed, with the largest at 6,600 acres. Fire weather is also still active in Idaho, with gusty winds and thunderstorms forecast across parts of the central mountains. Then to the mountain west. Colorado has 8 large fires. They cover more than 219,000 acres. Utah has only 3 large fires listed, but they are huge. Utah's 3 listed fires cover more than 216,000 acres. Babylon is more than 107,000 acres. Cottonwood is more than 97,000 acres. So just 3 Utah fires account for a massive share of the national burn area. Wyoming and Montana each have 1 large fire listed. They're each about 300 acres. Then there's Minnesota, where the key difference is smoke. Minnesota has 6 large fires listed. All 6 are in Superior National Forest. The Bear Trap Fire is nearly 30,000 acres. Thumb is more than 16,000 acres. Smoke from northern fires has repeatedly pushed unhealthy air into parts of the Midwest and eastern United States. And then to the southeast. Florida has 4 large fires. These fires cover nearly 20,000 acres. The biggest is Berger at 19,000. NIFC says dry fuels in southern Florida remain receptive to new ignitions. Louisiana has 2 large fires. Both are in or near Sabine National Wildlife Refuge. And finally, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia each have 1 large fire listed, with 500 acres in North Carolina, 1,000 acres in South Carolina, and 100 acres in Virginia. So large fires are burning from Oregon and Washington to California and Idaho, from Utah and Colorado to Montana and Wyoming, from Minnesota to Florida. The flames are local. The map is national. And this season has already claimed lives. The dominant story here is the scale, the spread, the smoke, and the strain on the system. But it's worth saying that fires aren't just statistics. People fight these fires. People are breathing the smoke, people are evacuating, and sometimes people are dying. Now let's look at the science. NIFC's own weather outlook gives the immediate recipe. Gusty winds, low humidity, and recent lightning are supporting new large fire growth in parts of the west. In Idaho and the Northern Rockies, winds and thunderstorms are part of the forecast. In the southern high plains, heat, low humidity, and mixed wet and dry thunderstorms could support new starts. In Minnesota, breezy conditions and scattered thunderstorms are also part of the fire weather picture. So that's the short-term fire weather. But the long-term science is bigger than one forecast. A peer-reviewed study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Science looked at wildfire across western US forests. The study found that human-caused climate change accounted for about 55% of the observed increase in fuel aridity from 1979 to 2015. Fuel aridity means how dry and flammable vegetation becomes. The same study estimated that human-caused climate change nearly doubled the forest fire area expected in its absence over that period. In plain language, warming has made western US forests easier to burn. The 5th National Climate Assessment also makes the broad connection clear. Climate change is leading to larger and more severe wildfires in the western US. The impacts aren't only near the flames. Wildfire smoke creates public health risks far from the fire line. Fire affects ecosystems, housing, health, transport, power, insurance, and emergency systems. A 2023 Nature study looked at wildfire smoke and US air quality. Wildfire smoke has started to reverse decades of air quality progress in parts of the US. Since at least 2016, wildfire smoke has influenced fine particle pollution trends in nearly 3/4 of US states of the contiguous US. So fire is a national air quality story as well. Heat dries fuels, dry fuels burn more easily. Lightning and people start fires, wind spreads them, smoke travels far beyond the fire, and climate change loads the dice toward more dangerous fire weather. Now to the politics. This isn't a story where one politician started every fire. Lightning, heat, wind, drought, and dry vegetation are driving the flames. But policy decides how prepared a country is when those fires arrive. And there are facts on both sides. First, the good. The Trump administration has supported higher pay for wildland firefighters. Wildfire work is dangerous, exhausting, and hard to staff. Higher pay can help with recruitment and retention. So that's a real positive, but it's not the whole picture. Reuters reported that the Trump administration's federal funding freeze disrupted wildfire prevention work. The freeze affected some Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management hazardous fuels projects. Those projects are meant to reduce flammable material before fires start. Reuters reported disruption in states including Oregon, California, and Idaho. So while the administration has talked about reducing wildfire risk, some prevention work was paused or thrown into uncertainty. ProPublica reported on staffing problems heading into the fire season. The Forest Service said it was fully staffed, but ProPublica reported that internal data showed thousands of unfilled jobs. Experts warned that staffing shortages affected not only firefighters on the line, but also the people who support fire operations. A firefighting system isn't just firefighters, it's dispatchers, planners, logistics, analysts, maintenance, communication, and support staff. Reporting from Politico and ProPublica also described broader Forest Service cuts and instability. Thousands of Forest Service employees were affected by early 2025 workforce reductions. These cuts didn't just hit people holding hoses. They affected the agency that manages forests, prepares landscapes, supports prevention work, and helps coordinate fire response. That makes the system thinner at exactly the moment fire seasons are getting heavier. Then there's the weather. NOAA and the National Weather Service are part of the wider systems that forecast fire weather, smoke, heat, and dangerous winds. Reporting in 2025 and 2026 described staffing cuts, hiring freezes, and budget pressures across NOAA and weather programs. Fire weather forecasting depends on meteorologists, climate data, satellites, models, and public warning systems. If those systems are weakened, communities can lose warning time. And warning time is one of the few things that saves lives during fast-moving fires. Then there's the road less rule. Reuters reported that the Trump administration moved to rescind the 2001 roadless rule, which restricted road construction, logging, and mining across about 59 million areas of undeveloped national forest land. The administration framed the rollback as a way to improve forest management and reduce wildfire risk. Supporters argue more active management can reduce fuel in some places. Critics argue the change opens intact forests to logging and mining while overstating its wildfire benefits. Forest management can matter, but it's not a substitute for climate action, staffing, prevention, funding, early warning, and community protection. So some political action has helped. Firefighter pay is good. But cuts, freezes, staffing instability, and weakened weather and climate capacity can make the fire system more brittle. And a brittle system is exactly what you do not want during a year with 78 large fires burning at once. And finally, the good news. There is some. The first good news is that the US has a huge coordinated wildfire response system. More than 23,000 firefighters and support personnel are currently engaged nationwide. NIFC is tracking large fires daily. Crews, engines, helicopters, and incident teams are being coordinated across state and federal systems. Weather outlooks are identifying where new fire starts and identifying where fire growth is more likely. The second good news is that crews are making progress on some of the largest fires. Some very large fires already have substantial containment. Utah's Babylon and Cottonwood were both listed with very high containment. Oregon's Hay Creek Complex, despite being enormous, was listed at 60% contained. Some California fires were also listed with high containment. That doesn't mean the danger's gone, but it does mean crews are holding parts of the line. The third good news is that the science is much clearer than it used to be. We now know more about how heat dries fuels. We know more about how smoke affects health. We know more about how climate change is shifting fire risk. We know more about where communities are exposed, and better knowledge can support better preparation. The final good news is that many ignitions are still preventable. In a hotter, drier world, every avoided spark counts. It doesn't solve climate change or rebuild an understaffed agency. It doesn't make 4 million burned acres disappear, but it does mean people aren't powerless. The US has large fires burning from the Pacific Northwest to the Mountain West, from the Great Lakes to the Southeast. The flames are local, the smoke is regional, the science is global, and the politics decide how prepared people are when the next red flag warning arrives. That's it for today. I'd love to hear what you think. Links are in the description. Thanks so much for watching.